of the act. So we proceeded on that basis, so that we would know what amount that the person would claim, and he would just settle this matter once and for all. But like you say, yes, it could have been done through purchase also. I'm not sure why it was done that way.
You mentioned the word file. Do you have the relevant file for this case?
Yes, I do.
Could we see the file? Is there anything in particular you want to draw our attention to on that file?
I made some copies of relevant, what I thought was relevant, because of course, I've been following also the statement made by Madame Bailey, for example. I follow on TV like everybody else, and I heard her say that she wrote a letter. And of course, I researched in the ministry, and I saw the file. And I've seen the letter that she refers to. And of course, there are some pieces of correspondence here. I will start with the letter by Mrs. Michaud herself, where she proposes that government, she proposes the exchange of the heirs Michaud house at Montfleury in settlement for the bond. So and that's dated the 24th of May 1988, I would produce this letter. That's a copy. That's a copy. I also have a letter from Mrs. Bailey. At the time she was Miss Larue, Maryse, and she obviously wrote to us, to the ministry, to the principal secretary then, and said that the above name who served as guarantor, Mrs. Danielle Michaud, for her son Roland Michaud, undertook overseas medical training under a government scholarship, as proposed the exchange of her property and house of heirs Michaud at Montfleury for the cost of the medical training of Roland, who failed to return to Seychelles. This ministry, which is responsible for recovering costs incurred in respect of overseas training for pre-service students, has accepted the above proposal. We would be most grateful, therefore, if you could arrange for the acquisition to take place and inform us whether your department has any plans for use of the said property and house. And please inform us as soon as the acquisition has been completed. I attach a copy of Mrs. Michaud's letter proposing the exchange.
Was there any calculation done of how much was owed to pay for the training and the value of the property?
Yes, we have a letter on file from, at the time, Minister James Michel, who was the then Minister of Education, who actually sent a letter saying that the bond was something like 180,000 something. 181, I think, something. And because I think when you sign a bond, there is no cost put in the letter of the guarantee. It is only after you fail to return that I think they take up with the British Council, and these costs are given. So the cost is given there. I have a copy here of the acquisition notice. If you don't have it, I don't know if you.
And do you have a copy of the letter of James Michel saying it's worth 180,000?
No, the letter, just one correction. The letter does not say the property is worth 180. The letter says the bond, the value of the training is 180,000. Okay. But I don't have a copy. I can give you.
Yeah,
and make a copy.
Would you, with all of your experience, have said that that was the reasonable valuation of the land that was?
In fact, swapped? There is some correspondence on file that says that the house was worth 140,000 in 1986. So the acquisition happened in 88, but it was in connection with something else. It was in connection, I think, with a possibility of the international school at the time either buying this property or government buying the whole lot. There was some mention of it before this came about. So the property was valued at 140,000.
So there was government interest in the property before they managed to acquire it when the son failed to come back from there?
At some point there was, yes.
There was
a few years before
okay.
that.
Okay.
Because government wanted to, from what I see on file, wanted to buy this property to build a clinic for Montfleury. And then it was found that it was an ideal location for a clinic, in view of the limitations, I think, related to the width of the property and parking arrangements. So this idea was dropped.
And there's nothing on your file about an agreement to repay back money originally. I mean, the family believes that their mother wanted to pay in money, not land. She didn't want to give up this land. And that she, under duress, she then agreed to give up the land. But it was not something that she would have chosen to do if she hadn't been threatened that if she didn't give the land because they didn't want the money, that they would ring the UK authorities and have her son expelled and sent back here.
Well, I don't know about being expelled from UK. I mean, I also went to UK. I also did training. I also signed a bond. I signed two, actually. And I don't know whether the British government would have expelled me if I decided to stay. I don't think. I mean, if I did to stay, I went into further studies. I don't think. I mean, there's a few students who never came back here. But they were, obviously, they negotiated to pay back their bonds. I mean, if the parents cannot pay here, I'm sure those students, they're in employment at some later stage in their lives, and they also help to pay back the bond. So I'm not sure about that. But to answer your first question, in the same letter from Minister Michel, he outlines the 1,500 rupees repayment, which is too long, or which he considers too long. The ministry considers it's over 10 years and it's too long because it's all too easy for the students to go and then not come back to Seychelles to serve the government. And in those days, if I may say something, in those days you had to work for the government of Seychelles. Today, this policy has changed a little bit. In the 80s, you now have to work for the country. So you can come back, you can work for the private sector, you can set up your own business, provided you are in the country. In my time, and I suppose Madame Purvis, at the time would have been the same thing. We had to come back and work for the government of Seychelles.
And that was an agreement between the Seychelles government and the British government that you had to come back and work for Seychelles government? That was, or just the Seychelles government? That was what they. Do you know?
No, we have to go back a bit in time. I mean, let's not forget that we were a British colony. We were still a British colony. I think the case in point, he left when we already independent. We were the Republic of Seychelles. In fact, up to, if I recollect it properly, up to independence, only the British gave scholarships here. Only the British. When I was at school, we had a list of professions that you could, and we were counseled, that you could go and study. It was all given by the British Council. There's about 15 to 20 a year. And after independence, that's when Seychelles became a nation, achieved nationhood, and all the countries, a lot of countries started to offer scholarships. The French, the Chinese, the Indian government, they all came, okay? But nothing changed. I mean, you work for the government. You bond yourself to work for the government. Because let's not forget that we did not have a pool of academics here. We were a young nation trying to you know, to find skills which we didn't have.
So what else do you have on your file?
Well, I think what is important, I do have an agreement actually, but I don't know why it hasn't been signed by Madame Michaud. Sorry. I do have here, you see, when you acquire land, you have to submit a claim for compensation, okay? And I must say that the land was not mortgaged, and there was no issue of mortgage at the time. And this is the compensation, the form that was submitted by the Hayes Aubert Michaud. Mrs. Michaud agreed to it, and she submitted it, okay? She signed it. And she says she submits the claim for 180,051.36, which I think is the cost of the, I'm sure it's the cost of the training. And she says there, see Ministry of Education letter ref, blah, 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 which unfortunately I don't have because that file is not in our ministry. It's a Ministry of Education. It's probably been archived somewhere. And it says 180, blah, blah. And in brackets, compensation in exchange for overseas training, dated 1st September 1988. So you can have that.
It wasn't signed by Mrs. Michaud.
No, this is the claim for compensation.
Okay.
On the file, I do have an agreement because what happened after it had been acquired and the sum was agreed, because there was an agreement as to the sum before the acquisition. So in the ministry, obviously, there would be an exchange of letter or an agreement drawn up to say, well, this is for that. It was signed, I see here, but I don't see her signature on it. It was signed in 1990. But it was settled, as far as we know. I mean, the whole thing was settled through the agreement, you know. But it was signed in 1990, and I can give you a copy, but
Monsieur Lablache, do you know of other instances where this sort of thing has happened, where somebody offered land rather than paying back their loans?
in fact, I know of one particular case which I remember because I remember this because he was our teacher, Mr. Gilles Najon, the later. He actually offered government, and I think I handled the case at the time, to take his house and the land at Pointe-Laoui. So he did. And in payment for his bond, he didn't want to come back. He wanted to do a PhD in France, and I think he was happy there until he came back much later on. That one I remember, but others, no, I don't recollect any other.
Was that the whole Najon estate at Pointe-Laoui or just a part of it?
No, just the house. It's the house where he was living. Actually, it's now, I think it's where the church has been built. He used to live there in a little house. He had about 2,000, 3,000 square meters of land there with his house. This is where Gilles stayed. He lived there, but he had gone away, and he said, look, I'll give you that in settlement for the bond.
Was it the place where the military was staying, the Tanzanian, the soldiers?
No. It was, I'm sure it is where the church is now. This is where it was, next to, yeah, where the church is.
Opposite
The Pointe-la-Haut-
UCPS, yeah.
No, the Pointe-la-Haut Church, the Roman Catholic Church,
Okay,
not
okay.
the Anglican Church.
No, it's next to the Food Pro
Yes,
factory
yes,
there. It's
yes.
just about the back
To
of
the
it.
south side. Yeah.
Can I ask another question? One of the witnesses told us that under the Lands Acquisition Act, land that was undeveloped had no value. So you had to build a road, put a house, or done something. Otherwise, it had no value. Is that?
Yeah, this was correct in the sense that the second schedule to the Act provided the code for compensation. Okay? And the code for compensation was not at market value. It was based on returns derived from the property. But having said that, this was probably meant to, in the case of large estates where they were producing crops, coconuts, farming, whatever. But there is a provision in the Act where the minister can make an ex gratia payment where there are no returns because it's a residential property or it's a piece of land vacant. The minister had the power to make an ex gratia payment. So the ex gratia would basically follow the market value in those days.
We're very interested in your file. Would it be possible for us to get a full copy of the file, or even borrow it for a bit?
If I can take note that you've borrowed it,
Yes,
by all means,
that would be great.
It's no
That's
problem.
our second file. We did get one from the army, but
No
that's
problem.
our second
No
file.
problem, you can have it.
We will look after it. Thank you. Just ask, all these marks on the outside of the file, are they all instructions or no?
These are, that's an internal within government where we send the file to.
Aha. That's where it's gone.
Different
It's with somebody.
officers or
Yeah.
different departments or sections in the ministry, or even outside. Sometimes you can send a file outside your own ministry, but it's actually the addressee and a date on it where it went. Yeah.
Right, okay.
I'm still not very clear, but then I don't know this act as well as you do. Why was it, I'm looking at this agreement, why was it an acquisition order rather than Mrs. Michaud transferring this land to the government? Because she had agreed to
I don't know.
to have this arrangement.
There's nothing on file as to why, but if I recall vaguely, I think it may be to do with the fact that probably Mrs. Michaud did not have the necessary powers. Was not legally authorized to make a transfer, because it was later on that I think she was appointed as the fiduciary. Because in those days, when the father passed away, it was pre-1975, 76, the Civil Code of Seychelles provided for an executor. So if you passed away before 1976, there was no requirement for an executor. The requirement was for fiduciary, if you have a co-ownership, which I believe it was in co-ownership. The father left the estate to the children and the mother.
But it says Daniel Michaud de l'Étang of Montfleury acting as fiduciary for the heirs Robert Michaud.
But that's much later.
After, yeah.
This agreement is drawn up in 1990.
90, yeah.
You will see on file there is a note from the Attorney General's office saying that, where is the appointment for her to represent. So we could not do a transfer because we didn't have the necessary, authorizations.
So you could acquire, but still,
you could acquire.
The heirs, they miss out then because you are getting around the law in a way, right? To acquire it, and they're not paying anything because she owes, but it's not.
It was
you know
not,
what I mean?
No,
because
I get your point. It was not fully hers to transfer. It's in ownership, okay? It's in ownership. From what I could read on file, it's in ownership. I don't know whether the father passed away with a will or he died intestate. If he died intestate, then of course the mother had half of the whole estate and the children had the other half. Unless there was a will, I'm not aware of that. But
if there was no will, I've been through this many times now, and they'd been married before 1948, automatically at marriage, the wife would have had half, and on the death of the husband, she would get half of the husband. So she would end up with 3/4 and 1/4 going to the children.
It depends. Maybe that is dependent on whether they married in communauté des biens or séparation des biens. At the time, you could do that.
Separation was very rare.
Very rare, yeah.
Thank you so much again for coming. You've enlightened us. My apologies for messing up your day, and next time I'll put you for 9 a.m. Okay. So thank you very much. We really appreciate your willingness to come forward and to be so flexible today. So thank you very much. And we will return the file.
I hope I've been of
yes, you've been
assistance to you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very helpful. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we will be going into closed session for the next witness. So we will wait for that closed session. The next witness is, who is it? Miss Contore. Yeah, thank you.